Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Well, unsurprisingly, the elite media is refusing to show a lot of the violence occurring night after night in cities like Portland and Seattle, not to mention New York, Atlanta, Chicago, and elsewhere. But if you've managed to catch any of the largely censored video of, for example, criminals in Portland laying siege to the federal courthouse there every night for over 2 months, attacking, setting fires, and even using lasers to try and blind police, you'll notice a perplexing sight. Most of these mobs supposedly demanding racial justice appear to be dominated by white people. But is this something welcomed by people of color? In a groundbreaking article this week on LibertyNation.com, Heartland correspondent Sarah Cowgill writes the following about San Francisco, arguably the most famous white progressive city in the nation. Quote, "The city by the bay has its fair share of woke, wealthy, white progressives voting for other progressives, which is all good and well until an attempted coup is made to occupy the Black Lives Matter movement. Those folks are crossing lines, and in a candid moment, San Francisco Mayor London Breed admonished Caucasian allies and proclaimed, 'I have a real problem with the takeover of the movement by white people.' The article is entitled, 'Black Folks Tell White Liberals to Back Off,' and the author, Sarah Cowgill, joins us now. Hello, Ms. Sarah.
Well, hello, Tim. Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you, as always. Now, let me ask you the question you pose in your article about the white progressives desperate to signal their virtue by toppling monuments and attacking and torching federal buildings. If the legitimate racial justice movement doesn't want them, what are the woke folk to do now?
I'm not sure. Pack up, go home, wait for the next cause du jour, and, wait for some kind of whitey movement. I'm not sure.
You used a couple of important quotes in your article, one of them from Anthony Beckford, the president of Black Lives Matter Brooklyn, who stated, "Our fight is our fight. Their privilege can amplify the message, but they can never speak for us. There have been moments where some have wanted to be in the front. I've told them to go to the back of the bus for the white people in this movement." That's what he's saying.
That's exactly what he's saying. And I wouldn't want my movement hijacked either by people who think they can tell the Black community how to do it better. I mean, in the 60s, do you ever remember seeing Martin Luther King and John Lewis and all these guys walking arm in arm? Did you ever see white people ahead of them? No, they were in the front. They were always up front and center. And this is not happening with this movement.
Excellent point. Now, another quote that you use going back a ways to the 1960s, which explains the word that was used for black people back then, which I'll say was the acceptable term, the common term for it then. But Malcolm X, who didn't believe in the peaceful protests of Martin Luther King, but believed in being far more aggressive than that, he once proclaimed, I love this quote, "The worst enemy that the Negro have is this white man that runs around here drooling at the mouth, professing to love Negroes and calling himself a liberal. And it is following these white liberals that has perpetuated problems that Negroes have. If the Negro wasn't taken, tricked, or deceived by the white liberal, then Negroes would get together and solve our own problems."
They know that the liberal politicians, all they do is use them. They use them. They're not allowed to do anything. They're not allowed to think. They're forced to vote Democrat every freaking time. Having white Hollywood stand up and proclaim, "Let's defund the police because we have to because of George Floyd," that's not their call. It's the Black movement. It's their call. It is not up to Hollywood whiteys.
Now, the reverse angle is that this insurrection could not continue almost unabated if it weren't for the thousands of white people in the center of it. So where do you think this whole post-George Floyd insurrection would be if it was limited only to black people?
Same place Ferguson was. How many years ago was that? It died out. It died out rather quickly. And 5 years from now, I'm not sure George Floyd is going to be a household name either. Social networking is incredibly powerful for pop-up riots and pop-up protesting. So I think had Ferguson happened last week, we would have had the same thing.
Well, the Washington Redskins recently got rid of their name after 88 years as a bow to who? Native Americans don't care except for a small number of radical activists. It doesn't help black people. Does nothing for victims of police violence. And now the team owner can't even decide on a new name for the former Redskins. How are regular workaday Americans in your neck of the woods out in the heartland taking in all of these empty gestures?
Turning off the TV. That people are just they don't care anymore.
All right, Sarah, you and I will take on the assignment of coming up with a new acceptable nickname for the Redskins. It'll take about 5 years, but we'll get there.
We'll get there. I'm excited about this. This will be fun.
Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Sarah Cowgill, LibertyNation.com.